Hi, everyone. We're so happy to have all of you here with us today. This is the second session in Begin's Summer Stride series. It's a four-part series that's running monthly this summer. And it's all about helping each other flip the script on that dreaded, stressful sentiment, the summer slide, and reframe summer as a season for strides, a chance for kids to keep growing and learning in meaningful, manageable, and importantly, joyful ways. This series is brought to you by Begin, an award-winning early learning company dedicated to unlocking every child's potential through hands-on, digital, and experiential play. You can learn more about Begin by visiting our website, beginlearning.com. So just some quick housekeeping before we get started. We will end our session with at least 10 minutes of Q&A. You should see a little Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom. Please send questions as they come to mind, and our wonderful moderator, Carolina, will be keeping track of these questions and sharing them with us. So I'm so thrilled to be here today with all of you to discuss my favorite topic and the most powerful way us grown-ups can support children's learning and development by letting them play and tapping into the science of play, and perhaps by playing a little bit ourselves. My name is Charlotte Wright, and I'll be our moderator this evening. I'm a learning designer and a researcher at Begin, and I began my career in the classroom as an early childhood educator. I spent nearly a decade in the classroom before I transitioned to research. And today's topic is especially close to my heart because I made the hard decision to leave the classroom because I saw play diminishing from the schools and communities that I taught in. And I wanted to help bridge that gap between research and practice so everyone understood how crucial play is. And I was incredibly lucky to study and advocate for play at Temple University's Infant and Child Lab, where I had the privilege of learning so much from one of our esteemed guests today, Dr. Kathy Hirsh-Pasek. So without further ado, let me introduce our two phenomenal guests, Dr. Kathy Hirsh-Pasek and Rachel Robertson. So Kathy is the Lefkowitz Faculty Fellow in Psychology at Temple University and a Senior Fellow at the Brookings Institution. She examines the development of early language and literacy, the role of play in learning, and learning and technology. She is the author of 17 books and hundreds of publications, and she has won numerous awards in her field, including being inducted into the National Academy of Education and the Association of Children's Museums Best Friend to Kids Award. She is committed to translating science and research for caregivers, educators, for lay and professional audiences. And her book, Becoming Brilliant, released in 2016, was on the New York Times bestseller list in education, and her book, Making Schools Work, was released in late fall of 2022. And I just learned that her book, Einstein Doesn't Use Flashcards, will be released again next January for a re-release. Very exciting. Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you. It is so great to be here and always to be with you and Rachel.
Wonderful, wonderful. And Rachel, so Rachel has been in the education field for over 25 years. She has degrees in education, human development, and family studies, a certificate in early education leadership from Harvard, and is a doctoral student at Northeastern. She is currently the Chief Academic Officer for Bright Horizons, leading early education programs and educator professional development for the over 600 centers and more than 12,000 early educators across the United States. And in this role, she also serves as the Executive Director for the National Center for Early Education Excellence at Bright Horizons and is a board member for the Bright Horizons Foundation. In addition to these professional roles, she is an author of numerous articles and books for families, educators, and children. She also hosts an amazing parenting podcast. So for you parents listening, check it out. It's called Teach, Play, Love, and presents to parents and educators in live and virtual formats throughout the year. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you. Thanks for having me and letting me spend time talking about such an amazing topic with such amazing people, including the attendees.
Great, great. So thank you both. So let's dive right in. I want to start with what might seem like a very simple question, but I think it's actually at the heart of why so many folks think that it's play versus learning, or play and learning are opposing. I'd love to hear from both of your perspectives. What is play? How can we define play? Can we encapsulate it in one definition? I'd love to start with you, Rachel.
It seems like such a simple question, and we can complicate it as educators and researchers. But in the end, it really is a simple thing. It's just joyful, hands-on, experiential, getting messy, getting dirty, figuratively or quite literally. Um, Motivated by the person who, and mostly we're going to talk about children, but if an adult is playing, motivated, intrinsic motivation, and not a lot of rules or guidance or end product. It's just you're there for the sake of the play. And I think that something you said to start is super important, is that play versus learning. I think we should say that about fun too, because fun also gets categorized as frivolous, but you have to really be enjoying something and want to do something to be able to get anything out of it. So the fun in play and the joy is those are really important parts of it.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. And yeah, and when we think about times when we ourselves have learned best, usually those are times where we're feeling that joy, right? So it makes sense that it sticks more
Yeah.
when.
Everybody, adults, we all say, I bet everyone on this call at one point has said, you know what, I learn best when hands on. We all do. That's play. That's a part of it, right?
Yeah. How about you, Kathy? How would you define play?
Well, I mean, after working on it for so many years, I realize it's super complex, super complex, as Rachel said. But the insight I think that we've had in the science, and I think it's like amazing. It's like this bold idea, that play happens when you're active, not when you're passive, right? Play happens when you're engaged, not when you're distracted, or when something's meaningful, not when it's meaningless. Play seems to happen when you're with someone else and you're playing. Now, you can have some, non-social play, but God, it's more fun with other people. And it happens when you do it over and over again. Like, you're piling up those Legos and they fall, and then you pile them up again and you go, that's how to build a tower. And then play happens when it's joyful. And, there was a day when a group of us realized that precisely that little tweet, active, engaged, meaningful, socially interactive, iterative, joyful. Oh my gosh, that's the way human brains learn. Now think about it. We were designed in a way to play ourselves to learning. So when people say the play and learning aren't the same, you go, actually, think so. I think the best learning you ever did probably happened in play. And I would like to vote for our creating a new word today, plurning. And I would also like to vote for adults having more plurning in their lives.
Yeah,
Yeah.
certainly all need more learning.
That one might stick. Let's see if we can get that one going.
Get it
I
going.
think that what you said is so important in terms of just that overlay of learning and play, because if you take what it takes, if you would have explained all those things you just said under the guise of learning, project-based learning or experiential learning, you get more nods, more yes, that makes sense. When you
Yeah.
explain this very same things under the umbrella of play, people are more likely to put that in a that's nice, that's of course we should play, but then we'll get to the learning. But they're just so parallel, they're just overlapping in what is good for children and for adults. And we know this from our own experiences, yet we struggle to allow that to be the primary way our children learn, because understandably we're so worried about their outcomes. But if we look at the science, like Kathy's saying, then we could understand just how important play, all those definitions are. And that's how if you just look at the brain, that is exactly how it's learning, and through those playful experiences. So hopefully that gives everyone some relief that all the fun stuff is actually all the good stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, it's great. You can like take a breath, but I'm gonna give another mini test here, especially the parents out there. This is a little study that I ran. It's not a real study, but I went over to the Trader Joe's one day that's near my house, and I asked every parent there, what did they want or what did they count as success for their children? Okay, so here is success for your child, version one, or we could call this the traditional success. I want my kids to be really good at taking tests in math and reading. Okay, so that's choice one. Choice two, I want my kids to be happy, healthy thinkers who learn their stuff, who are really socially competent and collaborative, who are critical thinkers and creative innovators, and who are going to grow up to be wonderful citizens. And everyone chose number two. I thought, well, what's that about? Because we spend our whole life worried about making sure that they do well on the test. We have passive learning. We drill and kill so they get it. So, school, what's the first word that comes to mind when you say school? Does anybody know? Want to take a guess?
Test.
Yes.
Boring. It's
Boring.
Oh, yeah. I guess it's who you ask. Yeah, boring. I can see
right,
that
right.
one coming.
Everyone's
Yeah.
writing about it right now. The
Mhm.
disengagement, right? That nobody wants to
Mhm.
go. They're not excited about it. They've lost the love of learning. They lost their curiosity. And I think it's because we create, just think about that active. No, our schools are passive. Engaged? No, 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 no. Our schools are more or less. I'm not saying all schools, okay? And teachers, gosh knows, you guys have been handcuffed for so long and you are so terrific that if they would just let you go, if they'd let you be free to teach what you want to teach, could you imagine the world we would live in? But we've done like the opposite. We have, I don't know who the people are making some of these policies, but it's like, you know? But every parent I asked, wanted number two, not the traditional. And I'll just say one more thing that was shocking to me. And Charlotte, you were around for this. When Allie Masters did her dissertation, we had all these questions that we were asking parents, and they even either got to answer as it was learning. This is like what you're saying, Rachel, or they got to answer it was play. Okay. And they could code it. And we want to see what's the overlap? What's the real overlap of these different groups? We had folks from China involved. And we had folks from the US. We've since run it in a lot of different countries. Here's the amazing news. It was like, drum roll, please. 78% of the time, the parents thought the stuff that was playful was also learning, and learning was also play. Now, you wouldn't expect, especially in China, right? But that's what we found. And Allie Masters is writing it up right now.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see kind of that perspective shift, right? Because I feel
Yeah,
a
yeah.
decade or so ago, it was very much like play is disappearing. We have hurried children. We're all nervous, and it does feel like we've hit this point where we all need to play, right? And parents are realizing that, kids are realizing that. So it's a hopeful time.
Well, if you look at the world out there, and I'm not sure you could be in any country today and not look at the world and say, I am stressed. Okay. And so one of the challenges for all of us is how do we rekindle the curiosity of the child? And so one way I always start is sometimes I just skip down the block. When was the last time you skipped?
I don't know.
Right? And then you see like the whole world coming into view in a whole different way than you did before you skipped. So it's worth trying.
That's something we all can try when we hang
Yeah.
up this collar tomorrow, right? Skip for a block and see how.
Yeah.
I love that. I want to go back to those characteristics that you were mentioning, Kathy, those what I know you call the six key characteristics or pillars. Active, engaging, meaningful, socially interactive, iterative, and joyful.
Mhm.
So I know it's a lot for those listening, but I'm wondering if you can talk through what that would actually look like at home. Like if a parent were to use those pillars as guidelines, how could they do that?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you a fun example. You know, I got this call one day from Discovery Television, okay? And they said, we're doing this show. It was like the Nanny 911 kind of show thing. But anyway, it was like parents who had some issue, and then they were going to ask a developmental psychologist and a pediatrician to solve it. Oh my gosh. Okay. So the one I got was the mother said to me, "You have no idea how difficult it is." Now, I should add, I really did have an idea how difficult it was because I raised three boys. Okay, so I get it. Okay, and they said, "Do you know what cooking dinner is like? Trying to get dinner on the table?" And I'm thinking, yeah, yeah, I definitely do. It's not easy, but they could not figure out what the solution would be, and I would have been stumped too. And I said, "Well, I think the very best way to help yourself out here is to let your kid cook with you." Now, notice what this did. It changed the equation from child is passive, get out of my way, to hey, come on in. All it meant is I bought like a wooden spoon, a spatula, and I gave him a plastic bowl. Now, every time I went to make dinner, they had their stuff to make dinner. They weren't really making anything, but who cared? And they were happy, and I was happy, and dinner got on the table. Thank gosh, when it went back to Discovery TV, it worked for the mom. And they had a great 911 Nanny 911 success story. So being active matters. Be part of the scene. Get agency. When kids have agency, they do things better. They have choice, they have voice. When they're engaged, when their minds are really on something, not just when they're swiping, not just when they're passively viewing, when their mind is in it. Gosh, they love to solve problems. There isn't a 4-year-old who doesn't try to figure out where God is, you know? That's like what they do. And 4-year-old kids, I mean, look at them. Every one of them is an expert in unicorns if they're a girl and dinosaurs if they're a boy. Okay? Like they could talk to paleontologists and be impressive. Okay, so active and engaged. So, what does it mean to be meaningful? Well, there's lots of meaningful stuff that happens every single day in your house. Do you ever like do laundry? I know I hate it too. But I made a game out of it. And the kids made it meaningful because they had to separate the lights from the darks. And then we had folding games. I mean, who cares if it's perfect? Okay, but I made it meaningful for them. Okay. Then we talk about social engagement. Notice that if they help you cook, if not really, cook in quotes, and if they help you fold laundry, well, my gosh, all of a sudden you're socially engaged with them. Do you see how you haven't separated yourself? Okay. When it's iterative, and by the way, you're doing categorization when you're doing the laundry. By the way, you can count how many shirts there are. By the way, you can figure out how many folds it takes. So you're learning a little bit of, geometry along the way. Like there's amazing stuff. You can even do packing and do spatial knowledge, which predicts 78% of what they're going to be like when they go into school math. Okay, so you're socially engaged. You do it iteratively. So you keep doing it in slightly different ways. And then finally, can you imagine your kid having fun cooking with you and your kid having fun doing the laundry? And my gosh, I literally made everything into one of these kind of fun experiences. And I tried to see the world through their eyes. And that's the cool thing is that if you become a 4-year-old again or a 5-year-old again, I promise the leaves start to look different and you see the patterns. Even slugs. I had a kid who loved slugs. I hate slugs. I can't even tell you. But we got into the biology of slugs because he was engaged in it. And so we did a little bit of biology at home.
Yeah. Yeah, and you
Yeah,
think,
that's such a good example. I love I love so many things about what you just said, but one of the things that we've adopted, we've made a framework for early care and learning at Bright Horizons called discovery driven learnings. And we talk about that discovery drives learning and children are driven to discover. So which either way you want to talk about it, both things are happening. And very purposefully, it is a framework for teaching and learning, not just curriculum. Because a lot of times people say, what's the curriculum? And that's important, what's on the plan for the week is important, but how children experience the environment, the relationships, the interaction, the social connections, and the teaching instruction is just as important. So we wanted to make this framework. But one of the things, a couple of things that we do is we talk to teachers about being co-learners and co-researchers and not needing to know the answers. And in fact, if you do know the answers, you should probably just keep them to yourself for a while because there's no discovery in that. So when children, we have a little tagline that says, when children come to us with a question, we say, let's find out. And that becomes the platform for learning. So that right there, it's these fully engaged, fully interested. We don't need to tell you what to be interested in. Children, they're interested in everything. They're here for the learning. They are here for it. They're excited about all of it. So if we just turn it over to them, what do they want to learn? What do they want to cook? What do they want to help with? And just use that as the basis. Then you right there, you start with their engagement. You have to do the thing anyway. You have to get the dinner done. You have to fold the laundry. You have to do the thing. Why not make it playful and engaging instead of spending all your energy on putting constructs and discipline around getting your child to do something so you can have time to cook? Just pull them into the situation and then they're learning alongside with you. You're probably actually spending less energy and definitely less frustrating, right? If you do that, and then it can be that lovely playful learning. I think the other piece I just want to add to what you said is that idea about the whole child development, and that if content is important, absolutely, you have to have the knowledge to be able to do something with the knowledge. But that we want children to know how to problem solve, how to be resilient, how to have new ideas, how to believe in themselves, how to have agency, how to be autonomous. All those things do not come from direct academic instruction, but they come from this really playful learning. So again, just thinking about what is the goal, just like you said, your straw poll in Trader Joe's, if that's our goal, then this is the way that we all have the right goal. We're just not real clear on how to get there. And I get it. Parents are really worried. You don't know. I mean, I was like this with my children, is like, which things do I worry about? Because I don't know which things are going to matter in the long run, right? And I just want them to be happy and healthy. And what if I miss the one opportunity? I get it. I totally get it. I think hopefully people like Kathy and the piles and piles of research and books behind her and all this stuff help reassure people that this is a really reliable way to get your children to that place you want them to go.
I love
So well said.
Yeah, so well said. Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, so we've already talked a lot about why play matters, right? And we often hear these general statements that play supports learning, or like I said, play matters. But I'm wondering what that really means. Like, how does play support learning? Is all play beneficial? Does all play support all skills? Like, if a parent is looking to support a child's social emotional learning, for example, like what type of play should they be thinking about supporting? I'd love to start with you, Rachel.
I mean, in general, yes, all play is valuable. It depends, right? Right. What's just like anything else in life, spending your time doing different things leads to different outcomes and different strengths. If you look at brains when they're fully engaged in play, they are fired up. Those neural connections are happening and strengthening. Having that social play is really valuable. I've read some really interesting research around just being in the company of others changes how you learn. So, I mean, that's pretty amazing. It's just being around other human beings changes how you learn. So, there is something really important about that, but also individual imaginary play, pretend play can be very valuable for children too. Free play is so healthy, so good for mental health. It's not it may be as strong for some of the learning outcomes, but it's also really good. So I think I'm focusing on the first part of your question, I know, but I think that that is the part when I don't want to diminish some kinds of play for the value of other kinds of play. But there are certainly, and I'd love to hear what Kathy thinks about this too, is there's certainly a times and places to elevate or give more space and time to different kinds of play, but to never look at kids just freely playing, making choices, solving things together, engaged socially, and think that's less important than guided play. It's just for different purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to just build on what you're saying. I kind of think of it as a banquet. You know, like your question is really like, do we really need veggies and protein? Um, yeah, you do. You do. Like your whole, meal of broccoli would get pretty boring pretty fast. So I think we're all looking for variety. And if you know what the variety builds, then you can build kind of anything out of it. So, we think of play as existing kind of on a spectrum, where free play is child initiated and child directed. So what you have is, this situation where the kid wants to build a fort out of the pillow cushions on your bed. Okay. That like kids do that all the time. That's free play. By the way, they are learning something while they're doing it because they have to figure out how to pile that pillow, that last pillow that makes the roof. Let me tell you, that is a job of physics as I see it. But anyway, then you have another kind of play that was alluded to in what Rachel said, that is kind of guided play. And that is where the adult might set up the environment, like in a children's museum. The children's museums are very well thought out before you go in them. But once you go in, that child leads the way, has active agencies, engaging, it's meaningful, socially interactive. Wow, it's got it all. And I can gear that more toward learning, let's say, a math outcome or a literacy outcome or a social outcome. And then within all of that, there are certain goals, kinds of play that are really good for certain kinds of goals. So let's say you wanted that, executive function skills of attention and memory and impulse control. God, wouldn't you like that? Well, there are great games for that. But you don't have to go fancy. Let's just think about them. One is called musical chairs. Another is called red light, green light. Another is called Simon Says. And by the way, adults have fun with these games too. Okay. So, sure, if you want to do something in literacy, a really good game is dramatic acting. Like read a book and then see if you can act it out. Because if you can act it out, you understood something about the story. Who was the character? What was the setting? What was the conflict? And what is the resolution? Okay, so you're putting that together. You're actually teaching what you need to know for later narrative and literacy skills. So you can tweak it a little bit and you still have child agency, active, engaged, meaningful, socially interactive. See, you guys are getting it by now. And once you get that, you can really see how it works. So I'm going to give you an example. When my kids were little, back to the dinner example, remember I had three of them. So nobody liked to eat the same thing. Nothing. It was impossible in my house. I had one meat eater. I had one who would not touch meat. And I had another one, I think he just took it from both brothers that he should eat really nothing. So he was on what was beige diet, which somehow included pizza, macaroni and cheese, and bagels and cream cheese. I'm not sure there was any more to it than that. So, in order to get out of the quandary of cooking something no one would eat, I used to have this game and it was called Make Your Best Argument. So the three kids are on the back seat, and I'd say, where should we go to dinner tonight that isn't going to cost me a fortune? Make your best argument. Okay, so they had to go in order, and the little guy always had to go first. And he would start with, supporting pizza. That was his favorite food. And he told me how it had a vegetable. He didn't know tomatoes were a fruit. Okay, but he talked about that. He talked about dairy. He talked about the carbs. He went through this whole thing and gave me his arguments and then gave me his argument. Then the next one go, then the next one. So time marches on, and he's in fourth grade. And he comes home and he said to me, "You will not believe this." Now, remember, he played this game when he was 4 years old, not in fourth grade. I said, "What?" He said, "Oh, we learned the 5-paragraph essay today. I said, that's cool. And he said, Mom, do you know what it is? Everyone was struggling but me. I said, what? It was, where do we go to dinner tonight? Make your best argument.
Right. He'd been in training all those years without knowing it.
All those years.
I think, it's just simple things like that. Challenging, offering a verbal or a material prompt can change the whole nature of the experience. Asking really good open-ended questions or just wondering about things outside with the leaves changing. I wonder why that's happening. Just getting the wheels moving, getting the thinking going, believing in your child's ability to contribute to the thinking and the conversation,
Yeah.
really wondering what they think. Go thinking, I noticed. Have you noticed? What do you, we went on this walk yesterday. Let's find 5 things. Let's notice 5 things that are different today. Just little things to do to get the thinking going, to get to see where it goes, to not have a goal of as an outcome. And that's why people like Kathy and I aren't the biggest fans of things like worksheets or flashcards, because we know where that's going and it's just an end, it's a memorization activity. What we wanted is that exploration and that wide open, kids like the cardboard box. Everyone's always saying that about holiday presents or birthday kids. Why the kids like the box better than the gift? It is endless possibilities. A box can be anything you want it to be. If it's got a toy car in it, the toy car is a car. The end. That's it. The box could be a car, it could be a spaceship, it could be a unicorn, it could be a house, it could be, we don't even know. It doesn't matter if we know. And then, so that could be some really rich free play. And then with a prompt from an adult or a new material added or I wonder or a query to like maybe you are trying to build vocabulary, so you're adding some questions. What do you think that's made out of? Is that corrugated? What could corrugated mean? Let's find out. Just that little process turns that playful experience into, you can guide a little bit of the play and add to it in a direction that you're intending while still having it be fun, interactive, motivated by the child and open-ended. And as soon as you say something like, we need to do this needs to be the outcome, here's what I'm expecting, here's when we're going to be done. That's another important thing. Let your child save their play so they can have long extended periods. You don't have to have a big disaster in your house. Well, we have people have like hula hoops, put a hula hoop around. You could save this area right here or what, something like that. Have them label their work so they can be writing, practicing writing. But as soon as you put all those rules and constructs around it, you change the motivation. It becomes about something else, and then you've lost the playful part of it.
And
Yeah.
if you wonder, if parents out there, I know so many of my friends used to wonder, like, well, what do my kids like to play? Like, I don't know where to start. And here's another game, a little trick I used with the 3 guys. So, one of the most important things you have from a school is the list of the other kids in the school. Okay. Really, that list is going to help you. So, if you can possibly be there for pickup, if you can't, and I get a lot of people can't, but if you can, boy, is that a gold mine for play. Okay. So, in the car, like, I wonder what you noticed today. And then you just pick a random name out of the list of kids, that are in the little book you got or the sheet you got, and you say, oh, did Joe actually go to the sand center or the water center today? No, Mom, he never does that. He goes into the swings. Oh, I didn't know he liked the swings. Well, where were you today? All of a sudden, like a river comes out of their mouth about what they did that was different than what Joe did. But they were with Emma today on the playground, and Emma was doing this. And you get so much information about how they like to play, and then feed feed the play.
I love these
Yeah.
examples because I can hear like a lot of caregivers like an aha moment going off because I feel like there's this pressure that play needs to be, what we see on Pinterest and Instagram. Like we need to prepare all of these like playstations or intricate play activities. And here with these examples, we see that it can be as simple as an I wonder, right? Or just noticing things on your walk or asking that extra question about, your child's playmate at school and just asking questions. Like I keep hearing this theme of asking questions and kind of leaving that agency for your child to answer them and then follow their lead, right? You'd be surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my favorite things I've seen, anyone from Bright Horizons will have heard this story before, but my favorite things I saw in a center, and I've seen so many things since then. So I'm actually hedging on saying favorite because I don't want anyone to think I haven't loved their projects too. But I guess one that really has stuck with me and actually changed some of the way I approach things in my role is I was at a center and on a specific just a day. I didn't plan it specifically this day, and came and got me, and they said you have to come to the 2-year-old room. They're breaking into the coconut today. And it was like a major day. They had spent 2-year-olds over a month trying to figure out how to get into a coconut. And this took a teacher who answered a child asked, "Is a coconut a nut?" And the teacher said, "I don't know, let's find out." And it turned into a month-long discovery. It's not all they did every day, but it was coconut opening day. They had figured out how to get in. They all had their little safety goggles on, and the teacher was there next to them offering guidance and answering questions, but absolutely not directing the scenario. So that to me is a very perfect example of how you can let children take the lead. It doesn't matter what it is. They just who knew they would ask that question, but somebody asked it and the teacher said, "Let's find out." And they all wanted to engage in this really deep exploration. They learned so much just through that exploration, and it was something they were really interested in. I've been in classrooms where they were doing an entire neighborhood study and children are out there with their clipboards counting windows and measuring things and or making full gardens and labeling things. If you just watch the play, I think that parents that have taken this guidance and done this feel more confident about how rich this can be is you just watch children playing and look for these things. So look for their communication skills, both expressing themselves and receptive and listening to others. Look for their ability to adapt. Look for their initiative. Look for their problem solving. Look for their creativity. You're going to see all of that in a play experience. And those line up with exactly what Kathy said parents want.
Yeah, I love that example. It's just, yeah, it's
Isn't
like
it so fun? And I just happened to be there on coconut opening day. What a big day.
have a coconut
Such
opening.
a great story. It's just
Yeah.
beautiful.
So we have about 10 minutes before Q&A. So folks in the audience, please submit your questions. We'd love to answer them, of course. But just one more question before we move on to Q&A, turning back to our theme for this series. So turning the summer slide or sentiments around that, the stress around that into the summer stride. And I think many grown-ups hear the term summer slide and think that in order to prevent summer slides or learning loss, they need to sign their child up for tutoring or classes or academic camps or purchase those workbooks and flashcards and things like that. So this feeling that they need to replicate, what school might look like for their child. And of course, that's so difficult to do, and not what summer's about. So Rachel, I'm wondering how we can shift this mindset and think about how play can keep kids learning during the summer in a more joyful, active way, as we spoke about, and maybe provide even more benefits than flashcards or workbooks.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can talk about this one in particular for hours. So I'll try to just give you a couple thoughts. I think that one thing is when a school is overly focused on academics, and it could be a whole nother discussion about how we got here with schools, but if we're looking a lot at, if we're measuring success by how children do on a test, or if they how they achieve something and that score or that outcome, we are measuring how well they do on a test how well they can memorize something and then share it back. Sometimes there's an essay, sometimes it's more complex, but usually it is pretty fact-based or informational based. So actually knowing that that isn't the ultimate way of learning and that isn't a very comprehensive way of learning and development, we can use summer to supplement all that and give them a really important necessary balance to that if they're getting a lot of that. So instead of replicating that in the summer, using the summer opportunity. I mean, ideally it's happening all year round, it's whole child and in immersive development, but if it isn't, really embracing the idea that the entire child needs to be developed and they have to have these really rich, playful, exploratory experiences. And if they're not getting those in school, and if they're really structured all the time, then the out of school time should be even more of this. And so really offering them that opportunity to get that whole child overall development. I also think to try to stop thinking about how to fit it in and just it's not okay, we're going to do playtime and then we're going to do learning time. I know we've been talking about that this whole time, but how do you do all of it? So if you're choosing, let's say, camp, that you're thinking about a camp that gives all of it to them, not okay, they're going to go to this lesson and then they're going to play and then they're going to go to this other lesson and then I'll squeeze in a little play right before bedtime. So really elevating and prioritizing that value of this type of learning or just playful experiences where they can explore and discover. We know that there's a lot of social emotional development needs. We know there's a lot of mental health challenges going on with kids, and there is a lot of coexisting with all coexisting with the high pressure of academics and achievement culture. So to use summer as a time to reduce that and restore some of children's joy in learning. So I mean, I did it too. I was all on the Pizza Hut sign up, read all the books the library tells you to read. But then we were spending tons of time in the library. So while making kids read because they get to get a prize, we want them to read because they love reading, but like get them into the library either way you do it, or just try to find the joy and the fun in things, and it's not just about the achievement of things. I think if you get there in your mind that you're valuing those things equally, or maybe even the play and the understanding the value of it in a child's life, it's some of these choices will more naturally happen. You're going to play when you're in the grocery store, you're going to play when you're at the library, you're going to play at any store, you're going to find that time to get to the park because it's going to be elevated in your mind as a priority. And then it's less hard to fit it in amongst all the other things. But I really push back against the idea of that learning loss or summer loss, because if it was really truly embraced and learned and loved, it's hard to lose.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think you make a really important statement about everything we do can be a little more fun. And gosh, that would make parenting easier. I mean, imagine if we had fun being parents and we didn't have to be CEOs. Imagine if we had a little bit of adult recess in there as well. And we have stuff to learn too. I learned so much from my kids just watching what they did with gadgets. I mean, I couldn't figure out a lot of this stuff as it came out, and the kids taught me. I mean, my lab is actually labeled. It's a place where children teach adults. But, just
Mm.
one more fun story, because we sometimes say, no, our kids can't do these fancy kind of thinking like creative innovation and critical thinking. So just you wait. So here's a true story. I got an emergency call from my 3-year-old one day, and she was really, really upset. And the reason she was upset is because the ball that she was playing with had rolled under the couch. And I said, "Oh my gosh, I see that this is a catastrophe." Then I said, "What should we do about it?" Notice that. Notice what we did. I didn't come up with a solution. I said, "Wonder what we can do about it." She said, "I reached my projected arm under the couch." I'm like, "Projected arm? Are you kidding, kid?" Anyway, she reached her projected arm under the couch and she still couldn't reach it. I said, "I guess your projected arm isn't long enough." Notice what we're doing. I'm not giving her an answer. Like, what can we do to make it longer? Spatula. She runs over, she gets the spatula. She tries with her projected arm in the spatula. It's not long enough. And then finally, she has the insight that maybe if she just gets a broom, which is really, really, really long, that with her projected arm might do the trick. Now, to me, this is an example of critical thinking as a little person. She tried different tools. She came up with different hypotheses that she was going to do. And eventually, one of them worked, and the scientist in her succeeded. So, if we take the everyday moments, whether it's asking them to help clean up after dinner, or it's cleaning up their room, or helping you make dinner where you got to get 2 eggs. Well, maybe you don't want to trust them with eggs, I'm not really sure, and 2 cups of whatever. Notice what you're doing every time you ask those questions. Your kids are learning something that will transfer. And believe me, they may not know the equation that 1 plus 1 equals 2 or 2 plus 1 equals 3. But I promise you that if their brother gets 2 scoops of ice cream and they only get one, they will know the math.
They will know the math and it will matter and be meaningful, right? Such a good example because we can all understand how that would work. Um, I think that, and it's something you were saying made me think. Well, first of all, thinking of kids as scientists is a great idea. Just
Mm.
that's a good mindset shift. We talk about that all the time. They're little scientists. They're finding out everything about everything. Every time they repeat something, they're just replicating the experiment. Am I still going to get the same results? What about if we introduce a new variable? If that helps to think about the sophistication of play, just thinking of them in that scientist mindset, I think that's a great tool. I also think and know, in fact, that kids they don't have much control. They are mostly along for the ride in life. And when they get to control something and be the person making decisions, as wacky as they might seem to us, they don't know what can or can't happen. They're trying to figure it out. And if we let them have a little bit of that control, it is so empowering to them. It tells them a lot about themselves, who they're capable of being. It builds their confidence, their self-concept, which we haven't talked about those things yet, but super important things that come out of play. And if we let them boss us around a little bit and make the decisions and we just join in their play, it is so empowering. They are delighted by it. It's not always easy as an adult. Sometimes it can get frustrating when they over direct you, but then we get a little taste of our own medicine sometimes. But we do actually have a podcast on, I think it's called like bored good, because this idea of both parents can get a little bit bored sometimes of this, but also children, if they've been directed a lot or have had a lot of structure, they don't know what to do sometimes. So how to get yourself through that, both as a parent and as a child. Um, but just kind of letting go, like Kathy's saying, is we need to play too. And the more that we can model that and play, it also helps us recover together more. Something we all made mistakes as parents. Um, and so like having that playful interaction allows you to kind of recoup and recover and reset more than a very structured directive interaction. So I think we've probably only scratched the surface on the benefits of play, but we've definitely covered many of them.
Yeah, this is great. And we have some wonderful questions coming in on the Q&A, and I want to make sure we get to them. So I'm going to challenge us to do kind of a rapid fire, if that's okay with both of you.
Sure.
We have about 5 minutes. Um, let's see. So the first one is, do you have any tips for engaging different age kids in the same activities? What do you
Oh, absolutely. Find activities like all ages love to cook, get them involved. All kids like to act out a book. So if you read the book, let the one who is older be the director. That's okay. You know, just share it around. Let them be scientists. Let them be explorers. When you do that, there's room for everyone. Play is the most inclusive thing you could possibly do with multi-age kids. And by the way, even with adults.
Yeah, I think that in the games you were talking about earlier, you can make Simon Says appropriate for a bunch of ages. Kids really learn from interacting with different ages. And I think that that process versus product oriented mindset too is, so if you get a bunch of art supplies out and
Mhm.
you have a very specific, we're all going to make bumblebees today or whatever it is, that's pretty rigid. That's the adult's idea. There's not a lot of creativity there, and it's hard for different some ages to participate in that. But if you put out a bunch of finger paints and color mixing stations and papers and things and see what happens, then everybody's level and everybody's creativity can thrive in that. So just the process and the materials, of course, you're going to think about safety when you have little ones involved. But the process and the materials, if it's open-ended, people can find their way into it no matter what age.
Yeah, that's a great tip that if it's open-ended, right, and there's choice, then there
Mhm.
should be something for everyone.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
there's another question here. How do I keep my grandson from getting upset during playtime when something unplanned happens? What do you think,
Mhm.
Rachel?
I would say it'd be really fun to actually make some unplanned things happen and to let them know that the people who are going to grow up to be the best problem solvers in the whole world, the people are going to be the leaders. They're the ones who take the unplanned and turn it into something special. So I think unplanned is precisely the way to go. We talk about that a lot with, their birthday parties and stuff. I always say to my grandkids, nothing ever goes the way you really think it's going to go. You can either make that into something bad, or you can say, wow, how exciting! We get to reimagine. We'll be the reimaginers. And when you are, the kids get right into it and they love it. So just have some fun with it.
Yeah. I think I like one example I've talked a lot about and is that parent instinct when a child falls and you're like, but you can also quickly reframe that, be like, did you know you could do a somersault? I didn't know you could do a somersault or whatever activity, of course, if they're not hurt. But helping them reframe and where's the opportunity? What do you get to do? Oh, we didn't expect that to happen. Now look what you can do. Like giving them help, loaning them your ability to problem solve and be optimistic through that, so they can build that up themselves as they're building their resilience skills. Don't fix it for them, because then you just keep teaching them that it's a problem that they need an adult for. So helping them, prompting them through it and really focusing on that, that's an opportunity. He's showing you a bit there that that's something he needs to work on. So like Kathy said, making some opportunities happen like that to practice and build that skill set will make it easier and easier. I'll tell a kid's story because I'm so dang proud of my kids. But one of my younger daughter just graduated from college and she won an award for overcoming challenges and being resilient of
Yes.
all senior athletes. And I'm like, this is my kid. It's true. We didn't have to do a DNA test. This is definitely my kid. The one thing I care the most about is that they are able to overcome and be resilient and keep trying and believing in themselves. And she got an award for it. So we keep joking about, when you go for an interview, no one asks you how you did on your tests. They do ask you how you overcome a problem, though. And I'm like, not only can you explain how, but now you can show them that you got an award for it. I mean, I'm joking about it, but that's another way to think about it. Think about the interview questions of your child's future. Nobody's going to ask them if how fast they did their multiplication tables, but they are going to ask them about how they work with the team, how they overcome a problem, how they solve something creatively. And those are all the things we're talking about. You can get through this kind of learning.
Yeah, I would also say one other thing to what you said, Rachel, and by the way, congratulations on two fronts, both the graduation and that amazing award. But the second thing is, if we act like it's bad when things don't go as planned, you can betcha our kids are going to learn the lesson. So I think part of it is how we model it when things don't go our way. Do we get fussy, or do we go, okay, let's see what we can make with it out of this, and I think if some more fun with it, our kids are going to see that as a model.
Yeah, dang it all, that modeling is the most important teacher, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it really is. It really is.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much. We've reached the end. We're going to do a few closing things. But before I tell the audience a little bit more about our next session, I'd love you both to share one key takeaway from today. If there's one thing that caregivers listening today can take and try this week, what would you tell them?
Oh gosh, I would say one key takeaway for me would be that it is up to all of us that believe in and understand the value of play to champion play. So it will take all of us to continue to share the message and to showcase the results for us to really make a difference for all the educators and all the children. The thing I'd want everyone to try is to try the let's find out. Open-ended questions. I don't know. Let's see where this goes. Just try it with a couple things and see where it takes you.
So I think the thing I would say to add to what Rachel's saying, which is definitely 100% endorse, is you play. It's
Mm,
time for you to play. It's time for you to see the patterns in the trees. Appreciate how when you're running into the wind, it feels on your face. And what is that thing called wind anyway? And what are those weird things called shadows? Can you just take an hour of your time, take 5 minutes of your time, and just see the world as a child again? And boy, will it open your eyes to seeing why this stuff is so important for mental health, for social growth, for mental growth. And I promise you, if we do things and teach in the way that young kids learn, they're not just going to memorize it, they're going to be able to use it, and they're going to be able to have sticky learning. And that's really what we want, stuff that sticks and that is generalizable to the next problem that they're going to encounter. I just want to say one more quick thing. Your kids are the first kids growing up in the AI generation. In the AI generation, they're going to have facts at their fingertips. They're going to have everything that can be written and look almost like a real person did it. Where they're going to get to distinguish themselves isn't how well they get along with other people, how well they communicate with people. This is what business leaders are saying today. These are the skills they want. Yeah, they want someone who knows content. But if you aren't a good critical thinker, you're not a creative innovator, and you don't have the confidence to move on and persevere when you fail, nobody, but nobody will hire you today. So put a little play in your life so your kids are prepared.